Psychology is all around us. Psychological elements can be seen throughout the lifespan, from birth until death. Films are a wonderful tool to explain psychological theory and occurrences in our lives. Characters interact within each frame of film psychological concepts. The films we remember most and view multiple times engage us by capturing the presence of these psychological dynamics in an authentic way. Please join me today, Dr. Katherine Marshall Woods, media psychologist, and our guest today, Scott Gutentag, with his film, Disability in Focus, on the best psychology in film. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Best Psychology in Film. I'm your host, Dr. Katherine Marshall Woods. Today, we are talking about a film, Disability in Focus, by Scott Gutentag. And I'm going to probably mispronounce that last name, so please correct me if I'm incorrect. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. My pleasure being here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Well, tell us a little bit about Disability in Focus. I had the benefit of seeing it actually twice at two different film festivals. And each time I watched it, I heard people just being so excited about the film as well as your work. So please share it with us today.
Oh, sure. No, thank you. So I'm a photographer in a Los Angeles area, and I'm also a licensed educational psychologist working with individuals with a range of disabilities for many, many years. So I decided to meld the two professions together and offer an opportunity and to individuals who may not be able to have a portrait shoot and a portrait session and families where they really struggle to find a respectful photo of their loved one with a disability. And over time, people were suggesting I should make a documentary, but I'm just a guy with a psych degree and a camera, so I know nothing about the film industry. And I met someone through the social media of all places, Peggy MacArthur, and she was very interested and enthusiastic about what I was doing. So I told her about possibly a documentary, and she said, well, she knows people. And so she spoke to Alan Wasserman, who's been in the film industry and TV industry for many years, and he was interested, and her husband, Merrick MacArthur, was interested, and he's an actor and director, and he became assistant director. So they were all interested in producing this film. So I followed their lead, and then I created the photo shoots and just kind of I did naturally, and they caught behind the scenes, the final images, the stories of the family, which was important to me, all in about 8.5 minutes. So yeah, that was a quick evolution of how that all came about to tell this unique perspective and story.
Yes. Well, why don't we allow our audience to be able to see a small clip of Disability in Focus, and we'll be right back.
My name is Scott Gutentag. I'm a photographer, and I specialize in photographing individuals with a range of disabilities.
First of all, you mentioned that this opportunity allows individuals to be able to have a respectable photo shoot for themselves and for their families. And I'm wondering if you can share just a little bit about the clients that you have and what makes it maybe challenging in order to get photos in the first place. Why don't we set that foundation a bit?
Right, of course. And I think there's a whole range, and so sometimes it's my whole perspective is getting into the world of the client and what makes sense to them and what's interesting to them, and in terms of following directions, such as a lot of language, may be very difficult. So I have to be very concrete, one step at a time, modeling, showing, taking a break, checking in, asking questions. Taking breaks is a big thing, and really following their lead. And sometimes those breaks lead to some of the best photo shoots because it's natural. They're interacting with their families, they're walking around, they're looking in their environment and enjoying. I sometimes have to create a visual schedule, so like a checkoff schedule, so that really makes the concept of time very concrete, so it doesn't feel like what, forever. Like all of us, right? We all have schedules to say this won't last forever, and so I sometimes do that. Sometimes it's shooting in the person's environment, say a living room where they will not leave the living room. Some individuals with a very profound intellectual disability where they don't have language developmentally, they're thinking like a much younger person, and they get sensory overloaded. I have to do the shoot in, say, behind a table and a chair with one window, but I want to create a nice portrait session. So that's part of a challenge, but it's also fun because that's their life, that's their world. So I think individualizing whatever is in their situation, and that's why I like to shoot on location and come to the clients and the individuals, or go to a very familiar environment that's meaningful to them, so I get the most authentic expression possible.
Yes. Well, I couldn't help but to, hear and understand that you're also a psychologist and a photographer. And I'm wondering how these two professions or in what you're currently doing, how maybe psychology may be facilitating that process for you and your client.
It helps a lot because I've been doing it for so long. Like any of us, it becomes like muscle memory or brain memory, and I think because I work with a lot of individuals with very young developmental thinking or very different ways of communicating, or very sensory sensitivities. And I capture onto that, I think, very quickly. And I'm very patient. And so I think that psychology of understanding and also learning from them and being very observant of very kind of micro behaviors, right? Of things that they may be doing or saying or movements. And that helps me to individualize the session even more, take more breaks, have more fun, do a lot more movement in the session, a lot more walking in the session. And so I think that just kind of, is a trigger to me, like this is too much language, or this is too much instructions, or we're spending too much time here. They need a break.
Yes. I have to say, I feel like this is something that individuals don't necessarily talk about or think about when we think about individuals who have intellectual deficits or maybe autism, for an example, your clients in particular, that when we're conceptualizing these challenges that people experience, is that we're thinking about how they may have difficulty functioning in day-to-day life, what that's going to look like for their long-term care. But really, it feels like what you're doing is also an aspect of their daily living, getting a family portrait, getting an individual portrait, something that is, taken for granted considering we all carry cameras with us on a daily basis on our phone, and how quick we are to be able to say, actually change our setting to portrait and be able to gather and garner one for ourselves, and how difficult that process may be for other individuals. How is it that you began to think about this is an important aspect for a person and a family to have, and this is a need that requires filling?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I thought about that a lot, and the difference between a snapshot and photography. And so I'm a big proponent of the product, much like you going to a museum, the experience of that is much different than looking at a little phone, which is really an algorithm, and who knows where it's stored or when you're going to see it again and how technology is going to change. And I think about my parents, and in particular my dad, who many in his 80s developed dementia, and obviously he forgot a lot, forgot history. But there is this image that he always that sparked that part of that brain. It was in the 1980s. We had this family picture with our dog Melody, and the photographer just wanted the picture of us without the dog for one picture, but she kept coming into that image. And every time my dad looked at that image, which was about 16 by 24, 20 by 30, in my parents' home, my mom's all-time favorite picture for over 40 years, he would always recount that story. He couldn't remember what happened, so in a sense, that image took the place of that memory, and it brought him satisfaction and happiness. And I just thought, what that's such the power of photography. It's just not a picture. It evokes emotion, and that sparks that part of the brain that makes you feel reflective and happy and content. And that's what I try to do with photography. So when individuals look at the image, it cues that part of their brain and reminds them of that experience, because a lot of times you hear from families, this is the most stressful time of the year. a photo season or getting that picture. And I don't want that to be that because when I look at that image, that's what they remember. And so, and then filling up in the homes, to me, that's sacred. I mean, to have an image I take of the family or individual, the client in their home, that sanctity of their private place, that's huge. And it's just like an artwork and how that makes a person feel, emotionally. And again, my parents, my mom's all-time favorite images were those pictures from the 80s in the family room for over 40 years. And it was just powerful.
That does sound lovely. That sounds wonderful that you're attempting and you're successful in being able to capture those positive affects and be able to hopefully allow families to be able to kind of relish in them for years to come. How important that is for people to have.
Yes.
It's interesting again, when I did see your films at the film festivals, everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm familiar with these individuals that you were actually performing these photo shoots on." Can you share a little bit about the how this transpired into this short film? You noted that, people were interested in being able to see what you were doing, but how these subjects in particular were chosen.
Yeah, no, good point. So the individuals whom I chose, I had all photographed before, and there were four cast members from the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum, and I contacted one of them. They're all fantastic, incredible people, families, and David and his family, and they're willing to participate. And so I wanted kind of a range of individuals, young and old, and different disabilities, different stories, different experiences, all backgrounds, but the common theme is that, hey, we're all human beings, we're all people, all have a story, we all have interests, we all have our challenges, absolutely, and struggles. But these are the things we like. These are the things we enjoy. And so I asked them, asked the family members, and they were very supportive. I mean, super supportive. I mean, without them, we have nothing. And so I felt very fortunate. And so that's why had about I think five families with different, like I said, ages and different disabilities, families, experiences, and I wanted to hear all their stories, even if it was about 5 or 10 second clip, and there were some common themes, differences, but common themes at the same time.
Very nice. So when we come back, I know we're off for a break. I'd love to continue to talk about disabilities and focus and exactly how you're bringing in psychological elements into the work of photography. We'll be right back after these words.
Hello, I'm Dwayne Jones. I'm thrilled to introduce you to the University of the District of Columbia's College of Agriculture, Urban Sustainability, and Environmental Sciences Causes. Established in 2011 and launched in 2012, UDC Causes stands as a beacon of transformative education. Our diverse academic programs nurture leaders of tomorrow. Causes is committed to providing land-grant opportunities that empower communities and foster a more sustainable and resilient future. This year, we're celebrating over a decade of Causes impacts with our theme, Telling Your Causes Story. Each story is a testament to the power of education, the strength of community, and the impact we can make together. Causes is a journey of growth, discovery, and making a difference.
Welcome back to Best Psychology in Film. I'm your host, Dr. Katherine Marshall Woods. Today we have the opportunity of speaking about the film Disability in Focus with Scott Gutentag. It's so good to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Of course, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Scott, you are doing such important work. You are capturing individuals who may struggle to have a family photo or an individual portrait completed due to disabilities they have. You work with individuals who have autism, Down syndrome, visual impairments, rare diseases, and I imagine there is this aspect, again, of being a clinical psychologist that facilitates that, which we've talked about before the break. But the level of sensitivity you must have to be able to meet their needs, to be able to take it at their pace, and be able to really capture this person and their likelihood is just phenomenal in the work that you're doing. So thank you for offering this to families.
Sure.
Um, I'm wondering, this film has been at various different film festivals, the New Media Film Festival, Believe Psychology Film Festival, and I can imagine that it also could have impact on the scientific community. Has there been opportunities that have arisen because of that?
Oh, sure. So one of the uh, c- uh, uh, family members in the film, a young boy, Everett, he has this rare gene mutation, and there's still a lot of research going on in this area, and to the point where it still doesn't have a name. As far as I'm concerned, as of today, it doesn't have a name yet. So there was a rare disease conference in LA, and it was focusing on this particular condition. And so the organizer invited me to present the film there and to the medical staff or the medical personnel, physicians and researchers from around the country, if not the world, I believe. And they were talking about their own individual research, very, very basic, hardcore science, I think at the gene level, cellular level. And so I was invited to present the movie. And so very different, but perhaps a little bit of a brain break of what they were doing. And so, yes, so that was presented there. I've been asked by a psychiatrist, perhaps speaking at medical conferences, presenting the film. So this really has, I think, implications for psychology and physician because it just relates to humanity in general and a deeper understanding of human beings and people. And certainly, I don't have all the answers. I learn every day, and I learn from the clients in photography and psychology. But yeah, so there have been opportunities, and I'm looking forward to some more.
Yes. Since you've been at these various different locations sharing this film, I'm wondering if you found any like-minded individuals who are also offering this. I mean, I imagine some of our listeners today and viewers will say, I have an individual within my life who has a specific disability. I would love to be able to have them photographed. I would love for us to be photographed as a family. That's beyond, let's say, the daily captures that's on an iPhone, for an example, or on a cell phone. Um, that we want something that can represent our family, like you mentioned previously, that can be, a part of a family history and legacy. I'm wondering if you have found that other photographers are also taking these specific clients and focusing and having a specialty really in this area? Or have you found that this really is rare?
Yeah, I found a combination. I found, photographers who do the work, but it's part of their bigger portfolio. So their focus may be somewhere else, but they do include individuals with disabilities, and some others who focus maybe with individuals with Down syndrome, and they do phenomenal work. So I find it's really hit or miss. And a lot of times it's incorporated with everything else they're doing. Like me, I photograph all people, events, and so forth. But it's not as common, certainly. So going to photography conferences, one will probably not see one talking about this particular population. And even though some may be doing some of it, so it is rare, but it's not zero. I have seen some phenomenal photographers and images that do that. And so I think where I'd like to eventually get is not just specializing in individuals with disabilities, but just all human beings. We're all human beings, but I think just is showing that hey, there's someone out there, there are people out there who could provide you a really great opportunity, and like you said, is creating a legacy. So I often ask, how do you want your future generations to meet you? I met my grandfather's family through an image, a 1905 image, still around, and the names and who are they, and just trying to kind of using psychology, it's like, okay, who are they personality wise based on their expression, their stance, and so forth. And so, yeah, images are powerful and it lasts not only today, but generations.
Yes. I have to note the individual clients that we were speaking about, in particular, some of the disabilities that we mentioned. Part of their symptomatology includes, let's say, challenges with social skills, communication skills. Like you noted that you have clients who are nonverbal, even. Individuals who, with those social deficits, may really struggle to have eye contact with individuals. I'm referring to symptoms that particularly are articulated, let's say, from Autism Speaks when it's regarding autism in particular. Visual impairments, similar, would have potentially challenges with specific focused eye contact. And within photos, we find that individuals generally have like a connection with the camera. And we talk about connecting our eyes to the camera, and how that actually will allow the picture to have a persona that's actually able to be generated from that space. And it almost sounds like you feel that that is not necessary in order to get a beautiful portrait of an individual, that sometimes that's actually not how we want people to meet us at all, is this direct eye contact to the camera rather than being ourselves and what that may be.
That's right. No, absolutely. We get obviously a lot of the social information through eye contact, through the face, obviously, but it's not always possible during family shoots. That's always my goal, is if we can do that. But sometimes it's like you said, like the looking off, the pondering, the looking down, and so that's not the only shots I'll get. But sometimes those may be the most interesting shots, the emotional evoking shots. To get eye contact, even for those who may have some difficulty or challenging, is try to gain their interest. So whatever their interest is the good old trick of putting it behind my head, right? Or an auditory cue or a visual cue. Even if for a half a second, I can snap off maybe 5, 6 shots. So that's why I often tell families to help me, or maybe grandparents, where they're really attuned to them. I don't want to say use, but I incorporate the grandfather or grandmother to get their grandchild's interest, even momentarily. And so I try to do that without overtaxing them, or it becomes tiring, because that can become real tiring real fast. Even holding a smile can be real tiring. So that's where we take a break, regroup, and then I may just follow their lead, and they may momentarily look in my direction and get a shot. So there are many different ways to try to get a variety of shots.
Well, Scott, I really am very thankful for this work that you're doing. Again, when I heard what you were doing, that you're a photographer and a psychologist, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. Lots of psychologists are artists in various different ways. Here's another individual who's doing psychology and a form of art in that capacity. But when I learned about, in particular, that your clients, many of them do have disabilities, and I understand that you've photographed all different individuals as well, and that you have this specialty and that you made this film. I just thought it was a very important aspect to be able to know about, to learn about, to say to families, this is an option. An individual in your life may have a disability, and this is an activity that you can still have for them as well as for your family history, that there are individuals trained and can do this work for you. So
That's
thank
right.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I look forward to hearing all about what comes next for you. Anything in particular that is next for you? Another short film, more photography? What are we doing?
Yeah, well, obviously more photography, and just speaking and getting out there and meeting different groups, perhaps showing the film Q&A, and also building upon it. So are there different avenues to build upon this idea, this concept of, like I said, getting more of the family's feedback, the family's role, and including photography, somehow. So it's kind of in development, so next step and steps in building upon it.
We look forward to it, Scott. Thanks for coming on Best Psychology in Film today.
My name is Scott Gutentag. I'm a photographer, and I specialize in photographing individuals with a range of disabilities